With every new season comes new hopes and new aspirations for what the team that we support is capable of. And some of us fans just like to dream and think about ways that our team can finally go all the way. Whether it's us winning our first ever Champions League or winning our first Premier League in the Emirates era. And that's exactly what we will be doing in today's video. We will be discussing just how probable is it and how can Arsenal go all the way and finally put City to the league, or just go out and finally get their first Champions League trophy. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Gunner Central here. I hope you're all doing well. Now, before you all rush to the comments, whether you're a Gooner or a rival fan, yes, I'm very aware that this video may come off as delusional or simply biased and unrealistic, but sometimes it's just good to dream up the perfect scenario for your team. There's no harm in that. So that's what I'm going to be doing in today's video. But with all this being said, let's get into the video. Let's start with the Premier League. Man, to be honest, after spending 242 days on top of the league last season, I think this could be the more realistic event to happen as opposed to winning the Champions League. It's quite obvious that the moment William Saliba got injured last season and we had that 2-2 draw at Anfield, that the Premier League had slipped from our grasp and fallen to, honestly, the better team in Man City. I believe two factors played into this. First, obviously the depth and quality of depth at that. I've covered this topic in my previous video, so feel free to check that out, but I'm not going to go into too much about that. The second factor, I think this one is less spoken about, but is just as prevalent. I think it was the lack of experience in the squad. Now, I know we didn't only just have young players in the squad, but age doesn't always equal experience. Outside of the two Man City players that we bought in Jesus and Zinchenko, how many other players had been in a title race in the past 5 years? Yeah, not many, if any at all. Not to mention the fact that we had the youngest team in the league last season, and if we had won the Premier League, Arteta would have been the youngest manager to ever do so. So you'd like to think that this season, with better depth having been added and all of our players having that experience from last season, that pain from last season, it should push us on. You'd hope that if we put in that position again this season, that we wouldn't go out and bottle it again. So you'd hope that if we can replicate our form from last season, plus the quality we added, that we could pose a real challenge to Man City. Now, I know for us to win the Premier League, that means that Man City have to also slip up and play below their expectations, and yeah, that's a big ask. And I know also that there's other teams that are looking really good right now in the start of the season. Teams like Liverpool and the scum that are Spurs. But I don't know if they have enough to challenge for the title. I'm not saying they can't, but if they have enough, it still remains to be seen. So for now, when I'm talking about this, I'm mainly considering Man City. But by all means, if you're a Liverpool fan or Spurs fan, I'm also talking about you guys, because anything can happen. Brighton, even, you don't know what can happen. We've seen it happen before with Leicester. Anything can happen. But to be honest, right, I think Man City slipping up to me is the most far-fetched part of this whole scenario. Like, they are just such a good team. They obviously have the robot up front. It's going to be very difficult for us. But there's always a chance. Maybe, just maybe, they slip up. And Arsenal are good enough to capitalize on it. Good enough and experienced enough to capitalize on it. And finally, we can maybe, just maybe, end our drought in the Emirates era. I know I sound ridiculous right now, but hey, like I said, there's no harm in believing, in dreaming. I don't think it's bad at all. And now onto the Champions League. If it's possible for us to win the Champions League, look, I think it's fair to say and to expect that Arsenal top our group. As tough as a Sevilla game could be, we should top our group. So I think even as much as an Arsenal hater you might be, yes, I know some Arsenal haters watch this channel. As much as an Arsenal hater you might be, or as big as an Arsenal fan you might be, I think it's all fair for us to expect Arsenal to top the group. Anything less, I'd be quite disappointed and scared for our chances in the Champions League. And from And if we top our group, from there, anything can happen. We could get an easy draw for the round of 16 and quarters. Not to mention that, let's say by the time the quarters roll around, that Arsenal aren't in the title race, then all our attention could be turned to the Champions League. Look, the Champions League is 50% luck and 50% just being a good team, right? We've seen so many good teams fall short. We've seen so many teams that aren't good go on to win the whole thing. We genuinely could make a deep run in the Champions League, and after that, anything is possible. Get to the semis, maybe we have a hard time, we just eke out 1-0 and a 0-0, and we get into the final, and then anything's possible. It's a 50-50 game. We could potentially get off our hands on the UCL trophy for the first time in forever. Do I think it's gonna happen though? Yeah, I don't know about if it will happen, but it's nice to think that it could happen. But yeah, that's the video. It's quite a short one. Let me know in the comments for as far as you, how as far you expect us to go in the Champions League, and if you expect us to be in the title race until May and maybe pip it from City or the Spurs or Liverpool, wherever you see competing. Thank you very much for watching the video and supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.